Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mings, and today I need your help. I need your help to balance the War's World COs with me. Now, if you don't know what War's World is, this is a site, you're looking at it right now. It's supposed to be kind of like a modern alternative to Advanced Wars by Web, a place where you can play Advanced Wars online against other humans in kind of like a refreshless browser game, so you can play game. I mean, if you played Advanced Wars by Web, you know what this is. But we have been debating for a very long time how we're going to actually make this site. Are we going to make balance changes to the COs to make them more competitive, or are we just going to copy what Advanced Wars by Web did? And after much discussion, we've come to the agreement that no, we shouldn't just copy Advanced Wars by Web, we should offer a different alternative. I did a poll on my channel asking you guys whether or not you wanted to see balance changes, and 80% of you voted yes to that. So we're gonna offer something a little bit different. We might offer like classic Advanced Wars COs for custom games. Maybe we'll even do 2 leagues, like one classic league and one rebalanced league. But for this video, I'd like to get you guys' input on our balance suggestions. These are suggestions that me and a bunch of other grandmasters and a bunch of other people on the site have worked on. So I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say about this. So on Advanced Wars by Web, how they do it is they don't make that many changes to the COs. There's some, but mostly they're accurate to what they are in the game, and they are balanced into 5 tiers. The problem is the biggest tier, or almost the biggest tier after tier 4, is tier 0, also known as the broken tier. These COs are almost never allowed in competitive. Like there's some exceptions, like Grit and Sturm are sometimes allowed in Fog of War. But for the most part, there's a bunch of COs that almost never see play. We wanted to change that. We wanted every single CO to see play. So first thing we discussed was balancing all the COs in the same tier. And we quickly came to the realization that this is impossible. You can't have just one tier. It's impossible to balance. People are just going to figure out who the best CO is, and you're just going to see a bunch of mirror matches. So what we decided to do instead, we decided to create 3 tiers. Top tier, mid tier, and low tier. And in these 3 tiers is every single CO. So every single CO will see play. And what I'm going to show you right now is a Google Sheet where we got together and proposed a bunch of changes. So that means that the 3 tiers are going to be akin to tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 in Advanced Wars by Web. So I'm going to link this sheet in the video description so you guys can go check it out. But what I want you guys to do now, first of all, watch the whole video before you make a comment. Now, before you make a commenting on these balance changes, I want you to include whether or not you are a competitive Advanced Wars player. I'm not saying I don't want to listen to your advice unless you're like, oh, 1200 MMR or something like that, but it's interesting for me to see what kind of people are offering feedback. So if you're unrated, if you don't play competitive Advanced Wars, just say that. But if you are a competitive Advanced Wars by Web player, just post your MMR, maybe even your username if you want to reveal it, and just say, hey, I've been playing a competitive Advanced Wars for like 2 years, I'm 1200 MMR, these are my opinions. I think it's just very interesting to see what kind of people are commenting on this and what they have to say. Now, I will say, these changes that I'm going to show you guys, they are kind of like an amalgamation of a bunch of other people. I've just taken the bests from all the suggestions. Like, I've gotten help from Kanbei, Tordred, a bunch of other grandmasters. So these aren't just my changes. And the philosophy behind these changes is we're not just doing things because they're cool, we're doing things kind of like thinking about how it's going to apply in the metagame, what kind of matchups would be ideal, and of course not trying to make things too broken, but of course there are some occasional changes here and there. So let me show you the top tier first, the tier 1 COs, starting with Nell. So Nell we've changed Nell quite considerably. She's still a luck CO, but as you can see, we've actually changed her minimum luck. So her day-to-day now is +5 to +15. Which is a pretty big change. It means that she has a minimum chance of dealing 5 luck, regardless of her engagements. It's a pretty strong day-to-day. And her normal and superpower are also changed in that they set her minimum luck to 10 and maximum luck to 40, or minimum luck to 20 and maximum luck to 50. This means that if she pops Lady Luck, she'll guarantee do 2 HP of luck damage. This makes her less RNG, but it also makes her less capable of like dealing 10 HP of luck damage in one blow. It basically makes her more streamlined. She will do luck damage, but it's less, what's the word I'm looking for? The dispersion rate is smaller. So she's more reliable, but she's still luck focused. Then we have Hachi. Hachi has the same day-to-day, 10% discount on troops. Barter is changed so that he gets a 30% discount. However, this power does not give him the standard 10-10. Now you will notice that I've included the boosts in the CO descriptions now to make it more clear what's going on. Oops. So whenever he pops his barter, he doesn't get stronger. He will when he pops his merchant union though. So his merchant union now allows him to deploy ground units at 100% price in his cities. So he can't build infantry. He can't build a tank, but it's going to cost him 7,000. We won't get the discount. So it's a situational power. He does get the standard 10-10 boost though, unlike barter. So now there's a little bit more of a thought process on whether or not you want to pop barter or merchant union. They're good in their own ways now. Up next, let's move on to grits. And grits, this is a change that I think a lot of people are going to be a bit taken aback by, but we've changed him so that he only gets a 10% firepower bonus on ranged units now, but they get 20% less defense. And all of his other direct units, including foot soldiers and direct vehicles, also lose 10% defense. What is the problem when going up against Grit? Why is he so broken? Well, it's impossible to break through his walls. Like, he has a bunch of infantry and a bunch of artillery walled up, and if you try to charge into it, you just get blasted to smithereens. This was Tordred's suggestion, actually. So he has less defense on his ranged units now, which means that it's easier to punch through his forces. This is a needed change because Grit is almost impossible to balance, and I would probably guess that he would be banned on a lot of maps, even in Tier 1. Just saying, like, I think Grit is just too strong on certain maps because of his artillery, but this is at least an attempt to balance him. And for his powers, we've just, like, tweaked the firepower bonus a little bit. Otherwise, it's not really a big deal. Up next is Colin. He works similarly to what he did before. He gets the 20% discount, and he also gets the... he gets minus 10% defense now in addition to his attack. So his units die easier. His Gold Rush now gives him income based on his income. So he gets 50% of his total income. So if he has 20k income, he gets 10k funds. So you can't save it up anymore. That's one of the reasons that made Colin so broken, is because he could pool his income and get like an insane return on Gold Rush. And he also does not get the standard boost whenever he pops Gold Rush. So if he wants the economy, he doesn't get the increased firepower and defense. However, his power of money is much improved now. He gets the standard boosts, and he gets 2% firepower and defense per 1,000 income. So that means if you have 20,000 income, all of his troops will get 40-40. So they'll be stronger than Kanbei for a turn. So this is a situationally very good power for pushing. So I don't know if it's going to be used that much, but I can see it being situationally useful. Again, all of these changes are just rough drafts, guys. The numbers will be tweaked based on your feedback, so please give your feedback. Up next, we have Sasha. Sasha's been changed a little bit. She now gets just a flat 10% bonus to her income instead of just 100 funds per property. This means she's now more viable in high funds. Additionally, we gave her another day-to-day that gives her a 10% return on any damage she deals. It's like a mini version of her superpower, 10%. So whenever she deals a little bit of damage, she gets a little bit of funds back. So she gets a bit more income from actually fighting. Her market crash has been changed. It now works off her income rather than her total funds. So similar to Colin, she can't just pool up money to make it more effective. Also, you won't have to deal with accidentally building units before popping your power. It's just based on her income right now. However, big change. Whenever she pops market crash, she doesn't get the boosts. So she will not get the 10-10. This is only useful for nerfing the enemy's power meter now. You can't use it to buff up your own units anymore. Her superpower has been doubled. It used to be 50, now it's 100%. And this is a pretty important buff because we all know that War Bonds is like one of the worst superpowers in the game. Hopefully now, Sasha will be less about popping Market Crash over and over. It'll become more of kind of like an occasional utility tool. And it's more about popping War Bonds to get money. We'll see how it turns out. Up next is Kanbei. Very difficult to balance because, you know, how the hell do you balance Kanbei? Well, we decided to put his deployment cost up to 30%. Don't know if this is enough. He might still be too broken. Maybe we need to put it up to 40%. We don't know. It's going to be very hard to tell. But he has gotten his dual strike boost, so 20% firepower and defense. And his morale boost now just gives him 50% firepower, no increase to defense. And his Samurai Spirit sets his troops' firepower and defense up to 40%. Now, this is included with the standard boost. You know, if the standard boosts are not mentioned in the description, that means they're already included in the power here. So you can see it's not 50-50 with boosts, it's 40-40 with the boosts. And he still gets the counterattack increase, because of course we want to keep the COs true to their original designs. Up next is Sensei, and Sensei is a very tricky CO to balance. Sorry, the text goes a little bit off screen here. So Sensei is difficult to balance because he just spams so many units. How do you account for that? So we've done a big rework to Sensei. His day-to-day power been nerfed a little bit, 20% firepower to infantry and copter units. He still has the penalties. However, he has a new bonus now. T-copters can transport 2 foot soldiers and they have +1 move. This means his black boats, landers, and APCs do not have increased movement anymore, by the way. That's a Sami thing. So, however, we drastically changed his powers. Now, his copter command spawns infantry on all his bases and T-copters on all of his airports. And his superpower spawns mechs on all his bases and T-copters on all his airports. So he doesn't get them all as cities anymore. So he pops his copter command, he gets like 3 extra infantry and maybe 2 extra T-copters if you have 2 airports. So this will make him way more balanced. He'll still be a copter infantry specialist, but he won't spam the map down with them. But he'll still get a couple of extra units. He'll end up with a lot of T-copters over the course of the game. But that's cool because Sensei's all about T-copters. Up next we have Eagle. Eagle is also a difficult CO to balance. We haven't really changed him all that much. The only change is that we have made his lightning drive a little bit different. His lightning strike is the same, his day-to-day is the same. His lightning drive now gives 1 movement to air units. That's all it does. It gives the standard boosts, but it's just like situationally. It's also reduced to 2 stars. So maybe if you have like a bomber 1 range away from an anti-air, you can pop lightning drive for a little bit of utility. Most people are still only going to pop lightning strike, but we figured, you know, might as well try to give lightning drive some utility. We also looked around with like buffing battlecopters to like 150, you know, to make them resistant to anti-air somewhat. But the truth is, most people are just gonna pop lightning strike. I know a lot of people are gonna suggest like lightning drive from dual strike. Trust me, it's way too broken. We thought about that. It's not worth it. Up next is Javier, and Javier has been reworked in a very clever way. He still works very similarly to what he used to. However, he only gets a 10% defense bonus from the first comm tower he captures. This means that Javier can now be played on maps with 2 and even 3 comm towers. His normal and superpower still gives the same boosts as if he had 1 comm tower, but now comm tower only attack bonuses are doubled and tripled. So if you read this, you know, whenever he pops tower shields, he gets 10% attack, 20% defense. And when he pops Tower of Power, he gets 10% attack, 30% defense. So he gets the defense bonuses still, the same defense bonuses that he would get from his standard bonuses, but he now triples and doubles comm tower attack bonuses. So this means that if you play Javier now on like a 3-tower map, he'll still be very strong. He gets a very big firepower bonus from it, but he doesn't get extra defense. And this is one of the reasons why Javier is constantly banned. I think he might still be banned on 3-tower maps, but he might not be banned on 2-tower maps anymore. Maybe not. It's difficult to say. Up next is Hawke. I don't think we've changed him in any way. No, he's completely unchanged. Then we have Sturm. Sturm was something that we like debated a lot back and forth. How should we make him? Should we make him campaign Sturm? Should we make him... What should we do, right? And in the end, we came up with a lot of different... we came up with a lot of different ideas for Sturm, but this is what we landed on as of now. Again, it's still very uncertain. He will function the way he did on the Advanced Force by Web. He gets more defense. There's actually a bit of a typo here. My bad. I just noticed. High quality video right here. Units lose 20% attack, but gain. There we go. Little typos like this will show up from time to time. So we decided that we're gonna keep Sturm the way he is on Advanced Force by Web with some small changes. So he will still lose 20% attack, gain 20% defense. However, there's some big changes here. His movement cost over all terrain is reduced by 1 now, not just set to 1. This mostly doesn't matter, but it will matter in terms of like recons moving through woods and whatnot. So it's a slight increase basically. It's a slight decrease in his day-to-day. However, he has a normal power now named Stormfire. It's just a normal power. Just call it whatever you want. It's just name is pending. Okay. It's a 5-star power that sets his firepower up to 20%. That's a 40% bonus. Now, what does this do? It allows Sturm to become his Advanced Force 2 Sturm for 1 day. You pop it, all of his units can become 20/20 with perfect movement. This gives Sturm a pushing tool that is not the Meteor. He can still pop the Meteor. It still works like it always did. But he now has the ability to get aggressive with his 5-star power instead of popping the Meteor. It just gives him a bit more flexibility. Very uncertain about this one. Might be changed. I haven't quite decided yet. Willing to hear your feedback on this. Up next we have Von Bolt. He still works very similarly to what he did before. He still has his day-to-day power. He still has his superpower, but he now has a normal power named Usium 238. Whenever he activates it, he can buy Usium from his own cities for 5,000 tons. You guys know Usium from Dual Strike. They move one, they're controlled by the AI, they move over units, they kill them. They're pretty bad because they can be killed by infantry, so this will be a highly situational power. But you can use it to like block your own cities from being taken. Or maybe you just want some extra unit counts. It is probably going to be pretty strong in high funds. Again, a very experimental normal power. I'm willing to hear your feedback on it. We'll see if it ends up being good or not. Alright, so we're done with tier 1. Let's move down to tier 2. So this is going to be the mid-tier. First off, we have Andy. He now has a repair day-to-day, so he pays 50% less for his repairs. His hyper repair now gives him 1 movement. Otherwise, it works exactly the same. And Hyper Upgrade now gives him 2 movement, and it has the same boosts. So that's the buff that we're giving to Andy. The justification behind giving Andy move is to make him more flexible. Right now, in classic Advanced Wars fashion, Andy's just a walking superpower, and no one ever uses Hyper Repair. Now, it's definitely feasible to use Hyper Repair. Hyper Upgrade is still going to be the better power, like cost-effective wise, but there might be some situations where you might need the extra move and pop Hyper Repair. So, interesting. You know, I don't know if it's going to end up working or not. Willing to hear your feedback on this. So up next we have Sami. Sami works very similarly to how she used to. There's 2 changes to her. And that is the fact that her infantry now get 1 vision and transports cost minus 20%. Otherwise she's unchanged. Now why have we changed her in that way? Sami right now, as you know, is tier 2 in standard, tier 4 in fog. She's very weak in fog because in fog you can't plan your victory marches as well. And also in fog, you're also more reliant on transports. So we buffed her in the 2 ways that's going to increase her fog performance. Her transports are cheaper, and her infantry gets 1 extra vision. This should help bridge the gap between Sami's power level in fog and standard. She still works exactly the same way though. Up next is Max. I believe he's completely unchanged. Yep, Max is completely unchanged. He's still tier 2. He's perfect just the way he is. If something ain't broke, don't fix it. Then we have Rachel. Slight buff to Rachel. She now gets her extra repair for free, so she doesn't have to pay money for it. And her normal power, Lucky Lash, gives a little bit less luck now. It only gives her 30 luck, but it fires a single missile. So instead of 3 missiles, you fire 1 missile. So now Lucky Lash is actually kind of like a situationally useful normal power. No, it was popped before in competitive occasionally, but very rarely. But it's at least something worth considering now. Up next we have Olaf. I believe he is completely unchanged because he was a pretty classic tier 2 CO. The only thing we've given him a bit of a flavor here, has a higher chance of snow and random weather. Random weather isn't a thing on the league anyways, this doesn't matter, but he has it now I guess. Otherwise he's completely similar. Up next we have Kindle. She's moved down into tier 2. In order to move her into tier 2, she needed a slight buff. She still works exactly the same. She gets the 40 attack. Her Urban Blight and High Society are still the same. However, there's 2 big changes. Urban Blight now increases enemy movement cost over urban terrain by 1. So these are all kinds of properties. Any property that gives Kindle attack bonus is harder to move over for the opponent. So city movement becomes 2, which means it's harder for her opponents to capture her properties or move on to the properties. And the High Society increases it by 2. This makes it practically impossible for enemy infantry units to even enter cities, unless they're standing adjacent to them. So these two powers now actually slow down her opponent. So, is it enough to bump her into tier 2? Maybe. But we'll see. Again, rough drafts, numbers, subject to be tweaked. Now we move into the low tier. Tier 3. Here we find Jake. Jake now is pretty heavily reworked. He obviously needs to be buffed from tier 4 down to tier 3. This was Tordred's idea, I believe. He now has 20% extra firepower on his artillery. He's the artillery CO tier 3 now. And his planes bonus has been buffed to 15%, so it's a little bit better than it used to be. Otherwise, his powers and superpowers work the same. I think his normal power has been buffed a little bit, up to 30%. I think it used to be 20. So when his artillery is on planes right now, they actually get 35. And when he pops his superpower, they actually get plus 7. So Jake has by far the best artillery in tier 3 right now, which I think is his whole gimmick to begin with. Up next we have Jess. Jess is a tricky CO to balance. We've tried to strike a balance between her Advanced Force 2 iteration and her Dual Strike iteration. Her vehicles get 20% attack now, just like she did in Dual Strike. However, her infantry still lose 10 attack, and her naval and air units lose 20 attack. We have to have this because 20% attack on vehicles is huge for tier 3. So she needed a debuff, but at least her infantry is only 10. But her battlecopters are very bad now. Her normal and superpower are still the same, they've just been adjusted up to take her new powers into account. So her vehicles get 40% firepower during overdrive, 60% during turbocharge. Otherwise, she works exactly the same. Up next we have Drake. Drake works pretty similarly. He gets a 10% attack and defense bonus to his naval units now. And he doesn't get, his line of sight doesn't get removed by rain anymore, so he doesn't get the -1 penalty whenever he pops his powers. The reason why we're being a bit cautious with buffing Drake's naval units is because we're still not sure if we're going to do reduced prices on naval units in this rebalanced league. We might. If we do, we can't buff Drake's naval units too much, otherwise he's going to be too broken. So 10-10 is what he gets for now. But it's a small buff in other areas. His Tsunami and Typhoon work in the same way. Up next we have Sonja, and this might be a controversial change, but I think it's going to end up being a good one. So, Sonja, we've just taken away all her annoying stuff. She doesn't hide her HP anymore, and she doesn't get increased counterattack damage, and she doesn't have bad luck. Just out with it. It's annoying. It's annoying to play against, it's annoying to play with. Now she gets the +1 mission, but her units ignore one enemy terrain stars whenever they attack, just like she did in Dual Strike. So this is a very strong bonus for tier 3. -1 terrain star means that she can attack into cities and forests much more easily. Her normal and superpower work pretty similarly, except that normal gives her all the day-to-day of counterattacks being 50% stronger, and her superpower gives her the same counter break as she always had. So yeah, it's a big change to Sonja, but I think it's a good one overall. She's probably still not going to be picked outside of Fog, but I think she should be a little bit more interesting now. Up next we have Grimm. This is a change that I think a lot of people are going to find a little weird, but I think it really suits him. And so he has the same day-to-day as he always had, and his Knuckle Duster and Haymaker still gives him the same firepower bonus, but it doesn't increase his defense anymore. However, he has a day-to-day now. Recons and Battlecopters have +1 move. He's named Lightning Grimm. And Recons and Battlecopters are actually units that are very frequently used by Grimm whenever he plays, because they're fast and they hit hard. We wanted to accentuate that. So the -20% defense is a death sentence even in tier 3, but now he has a chance of outmaneuvering his opponents with Recons and Battlecopters. It's a controversial change, I think. It's going to be very hard to balance, but I'm very interested in hearing your feedback on it. Up next we have Flak, and Flak is, you know, a fun CO. And I think you guys will like the day-to-day that we've given him. So he still has the luck and all that, but he actually has his Advanced Force 2 luck values here, or something similar to it. However, he has a brand new day-to-day. Whenever Flak kills a unit, all adjacent enemy units to that unit takes 1 HP of damage. Kind of to simulate Flak blowing them up or whatever. So this means that Flak is all about just charging into enemy lines and just like pummeling them into... He wants huge brawls, basically, which is true to his characters. His Brute Force and Barbaric Blow still gives him the luck bonus. However, they have an added effect of reducing counterattacks by 25% when he pops his Brute Force and 50% when he pops his Barbaric Blow. This allows Flak to take bigger gambles with his luck damage without worrying about backfire. Up next we have Lash. She now has a new day-to-day. She still gets the 10% attack for every terrain star. We might include air units in this. We haven't quite decided yet. A lot of people really want that change. It's tentative for now. But she now has a new bonus. Every time she loses a unit, she gets a 5% cumulative firepower bonus until the start of her turn. So the more war crimes she commits, the stronger she becomes. This is a hard bonus to make use of because, of course, you know, it will only really apply on your player phase if you size suicide units, and it will make your counterattacks a little bit stronger on enemy phase, but at the start of your turn again, it resets. But it means that if Lash takes a big loss, she'll be able to strike back pretty hard. Her terrain tactics is the same as it always was. It's nerfed a little bit in price. It still allows her to move through freely through terrain, and her prime tactics is also similar, except that it's 6 stars now instead of 7. So let me know what you guys think about the Lash changes. I think they're going to be cool. Up next we have Adder. We didn't want to change Adder too much. He's going to be all about spamming his powers. So now Adder has a day-to-day, which allows him to get a little bit more power charge whenever he kills. Normally you get 50% power charge when you kill units. He gets 75. Also, whenever he pops his powers, they only become 10% more expensive as opposed to 20%. So his fatigue is reduced, basically. He can spam his powers over and over again without suffering the consequences, which is, you know, his whole gimmick. And we also added a slight firepower bonus on Snakebite, so he gets 20% firepower instead of 10. So it's a little bit more of an effective pushing tool. Up next we have Jugger, and he's like the only like completely reworked CO. And it's kind of important for us to I want to explain what like brought about this change, right? So Jugger is just a copy of Flak, which is very boring. No one wants that. I very much think that they intended to give him unique bonuses in Dual Strike, but they just never got around to it. And I think maybe they ran out of development time or something. So we've justified completely reworking Jugger. He's no longer a luck CO. He is a CO that likes to sabotage enemy vehicles, which I feel like is true to his character. That's the whole thing. Like, look at his powers. They're called Overclock and System Crash. So this is a bit of an experimental build, but let me know what you guys think about it. His day-to-day is very simple. He deals 20% extra damage against vehicles, but 10% less against any other units. He's good against vehicles. He's good against ground vehicles. His normal power Overclock deals 1 HP of damage to all of his own ground vehicles, but gives them 50% firepower and 1 move, and no extra defense. So it's a super aggressive pushing tool, but that comes at the cost of dealing a little bit of damage to his own units. It's a very scary power to use. His superpower, System Crash, drains half of all the enemy army's maximum fuel and ammo, not counting infantry. And it's maximum, so keep this in mind, round it up. So a tank that has 9 shots will lose 5 shots when he pops a System Crash. So this is a huge sabotage tool. You pop this, you can just immobilize and disarm a bunch of enemy vehicles. Again, it's a System Crash. It makes sense, right? Particularly dangerous against air units, this one is, and even naval units. Again, experimental. Let me know what you guys think about it. Up next we have Koal. Koal works similar to before, but he now gets a 30% firepower bonus on roads and bridges. Very simple. Normal power 40, super power 50. So same as he's always done, he's just better at it now. And lastly, we took the liberty of adding Clone Andy, because, why not? They added him in Reboot Camp, he should get a CO. He works similarly to Andy, but in a bit of an opposite way. His day-to-day just reduces enemy repairs by 1, but they still have to pay the full cost, so he's a bit of a sabotage CO. His normal power is called Hyper Downgrade. It sets his opponent's army to -20 for 1 day, regardless of their boost. So this cancels out powers and everything. It just sets the enemy army to be very weak. His Hyper Sabotage makes every single one of his units drain 2 HP of health from adjacent units to heal themselves. So if you have a tank that is like next to 2 enemy tanks and it's a 5 HP and he pops Hyper Sabotage, he will drain 2 HP from each of the tanks, healing the tank up to 9 and putting them down to 8. So it's a power that only really works if you're adjacent to a lot of enemy units. It's a very situational power. And that's what, those are all the COs. So again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be providing a link to this sheet. Go check it out. I want you guys to write a comment with feedback on all the COs, include your MMR and Advanced Web if you have any. And if you don't like certain changes, then let me know in the comment section what you don't like and what you would change. Okay? I'm gonna be paying close attention to the comment section here. I really will. I'll be reading every single comment. And I'm very curious to see what you guys will come up with. So thank you so much for watching. I'm very excited for World's World to launch. I think it's going to be a very, cool website. And hope to see you guys there. Bye bye.